It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Congratulations, IILM, on setting this TEDx unit. It's always a pleasure to hear everyone, and I'm fortunate to be speaking to you all. I've been an entrepreneur now for about 6 years. Today, when you talk about being an entrepreneur, it sounds all cool and it's the in thing to do, but 6 years back, an entrepreneur meant that you didn't get a job anywhere else. You're starting on your own. Everyone calls themselves an entrepreneur today, even if someone's setting up a shop or whatever have you. But what I've realized over these 6 odd years is that being an entrepreneur really is a hard thing. And it's not just a hard thing because you're an entrepreneur, it's a hard thing because suddenly you're your own boss. There are very few people who you can reach out to. There are very few people who can guide you, and you're pretty much on your own dealing with things and the uncertainties and the insecurities that happen. But it does teach you a lot. And when I was thinking of what I would share as my life lessons, I thought, let me assemble and share with you what are the 5 things that I thought made me an entrepreneur, and they instantly apply to normal life as well. My life has been fascinating. I'm extremely lucky to be where I am. I'm very grateful. I know of a lot of people who work way harder than I do, are way more intelligent than I am, and I'm just fortunate to be where I am. But I think there's a pattern in the life decisions that I've taken which I wanted to share with you. I went to the US to do my master's. I joined a university called Michigan State, and I was doing a master's in astrophysics, which is not astrology. When I used to say that I'm doing astrophysics, people used to extend their hands and says, no, I'm not an astrologer. And when I went to the US, I figured that there were a lot of things that I could do there. Usually when you go to graduate school in the US, you have your own silo, and there's this Indian community which stays in the same residential block, and then there's this Chinese community stays in the same residential block. You hardly mix and match with the Americans. But I chose to build a team that was just beyond what my immediate sphere of comfort was. So I got to know a lot of smart people. But I also realized that I didn't want to be in the US, and I came back. And when I came back, I was a guy with a master's in physics and statistics, which basically meant that I was unemployable in the Indian workforce. Sorry to break your heart, but not so much anymore. And I didn't know what to do. I consciously thought that an MBA was something that I didn't want to do. I was a graduate of Hindu college, and I remember in the 3rd year, giving cat was almost a status symbol. Still is to some extent, and everyone followed that, but I tried myself for not following that rat race, and eventually I did do an MBA, much against everything. But there was a friend of mine who said, hey, you've done a degree in stats, I think I may have something for you, why don't you come over to where I work? And I did that, and what I realized is that was Asia's largest corporate training company, and they were building a unit for psychometric analysis, which basically is the tool that you give before any test or any recruitment that tells you whether you're fit for that job or not. And they wanted to create something specific for their clients. And they told me it involves a lot of statistics, which I didn't know, because all this while I was just a theoretical guy learning how to do stuff. And they hired me for that. And I think I excelled in it, and I did a good job of that. And when I was working at that place, there was another individual who came up one day, and he said, hey, I'm going to this MBA school called ISB. It's this new school. It's just started 4 years back. And I thought, okay, do you think I should consider it? I don't know. Let me go there, figure it out. And I stayed in touch with that individual. He loved that school. And he wrote back saying, I think you should totally apply. And I did. And I got through ISB. Then I joined management consulting. But I stayed very connected to the ISB group. It made me, and I think most of who I am today, I credit it to that institution. And I stuck very close to what I did. And I got opportunities and opportunities through that network. And when it was time to become an entrepreneur, I remember having drinks with a friend of mine from ISB one fine evening, and he said, hey, I'm starting on something which is really cool. I said, what's it? He said, I'm starting this site called secondshadi.com. I said, okay, what will that do? He says, it's a matrimonial website for remarriages. Now, think of the number of marriages that happen in India. How many of them get divorced and maybe widowed? There has to be a forum around that. Mind you, we were all 25, 26. We haven't even experienced the first marriage, and says, okay, sure, let's do it. this day, my wife believes that was my backup plan, but maybe it still is. And I started doing that. So for a year, I had a day job at TEDxIILM, and in the nights and the weekends, I used to work on Second Shadi, and we made it into what is India's today largest matrimonial website. But it got us hungry, and we started building more websites, and the most successful one that we have is Gadi.com, which got sold and resold, and it's become a large entity. But it happened because of that one evening and because of the network. And then when I went out of Accenture, which is my own company, I was looking for a next opportunity. There was this email that came on the ISB alumni network saying, hey, there's this company called Rocket Internet, which is looking for people to set up its India base. I didn't know of Rocket, and I applied. I loved when I met them. I loved what they wanted to do. And they surprised me when they said that we sent this email to all the IIMs and all the ISB, well, the only ISB, and you were the only one who applied. The only one in a pool of perhaps 5,000, 6,000 odd people or alums who applied. And we're glad that you fit the bill. So I don't know what worked. But one thing when I go back is I've consciously thought of what has made me where I am, and I think this is the thing. I've built my mafia. I've built a network of people that will always give me the best opportunities in life. And I credit myself for perhaps being smart enough to know what those opportunities are. And you guys should think the same way. You are in a college or in an institution or from a school or within even a residential colony or what have you, which has its own mafia, and it has its own mafia and its opportunities. Build that. One fascinating statement that I heard once was, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. You are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. So not just building your mafia, but choosing who your mafia will be is extremely important. And driven by that, last year, I started what I would call a secret mafia of Delhi Internet entrepreneurs. I call it the Delhi Internet Mafia, DIM, which is a depressing name, but nonetheless. And every month, it's the top entrepreneurs of the internet world that just get together. No purpose, no agenda, nothing whatsoever. We just talk. And the next opportunities are coming in from there. The next thing was betting on tomorrow. When I was in the US, think about the life that I had. I went to Michigan State. It was ranked number 2 in the US in astrophysics after MIT. I was on a full scholarship. I was a top ranker for the first time. I had a 4-point on 4-point, which meant I was a 100% student, and I'd never even come close to that. Life was good. But I realized that there was a lot happening in India. And I also realized that I'm good at what I do, but I perhaps don't enjoy it as much. So I called my parents, and I remember distinctly that day, and saying, hey, I feel like coming back. I think that's the right thing we need to do. And they were like, are you out of your mind? Like if my parents were wealthy, they would instantly say, Jaidad se beta. Something like that. Because it was a stupid idea. It was someone saying, I have the best life on earth, and people would give their right arm and right leg to be where I am, and I want to give all of that away and come back on something that I think will become tomorrow. But that was what I did. I was at TEDxIILM, a management consultant, and for those who have management consultant friends, we live a very pampered life. We stay in 5-star hotels, fly business class, meet people who are on the Forbes list, and try and give them advice on how they should be running their business. When I'm all of 26, and I remember distinctly, I wouldn't name that individual, but he's India's richest individual, so maybe you can guess. And I spent 3 hours with that guy in a boardroom, telling him how he should set up a new business. And he listened patiently. After that, he was said, what a jerk, but he did. And that was fascinating. And I was getting paid insanely. Back then, I thought that was all the money that I ever needed in the world. And I decided I didn't want to do that, and instead go and enter the space of internet and take a pay cut which would just about pay for my food on a monthly basis and my wife's, because I just got married. And that's pretty much it. That was all that I did. But I did that because I took a leap of saying, hey, I see internet actually changing the way things are going, and I want to be a part of that. I didn't bet on my present, because if I had done that, I would have been stuck where I was. I wouldn't call that stuck. It was a fascinating life. But I wouldn't have been where I am today. And when Accenture, which was my own startup, and we had built it with our own heart and sweat, was not getting where it should have been, and I saw an instant glass ceiling, I said, hey, I have to get on to the next thing, which I felt was e-commerce, which was transactions. And I did that. Very often, and I'm fortunate to be in that space, a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, reach out to me and they say, hey, I'm building this stuff which solves a problem for today. I said, that's a bad stuff, because if you're solving a problem for today, you have to ask yourself whether that problem will be a bigger problem tomorrow or not. And if the answer is no, you shouldn't be doing it. And that's my advice as well, and that's something that I've realized as an entrepreneur. You always are betting on tomorrow. You're working today, you are living today, but you're betting on tomorrow and building for that. A lot of things in my life have told me and made me aware that this is perhaps the biggest lesson of where I am. I grew up wanting to be an astrophysicist. I wanted to be the first man on Mars. I still hold that dream, and maybe I'll buy my way through rather than be an astronaut. And all the time that I had, I remember distinctly, it was all about astronomy, astrophysics, solar system, what have you. It was almost 8 years or 10 years of that existence. And when I went to the US, to the best destination that I could have been, amongst the smartest people that I could have been with, doing exactly what I wanted to do, I just realized I didn't want to do it anymore. And that was the same reaction that my parents had when I told them about that, because they were like, hey, you have spent 10 years of your life dreaming about this thing, and now you say you want to give it up. But that was when I realized it doesn't matter how much time I've spent on this, because it's not my tomorrow. It's sunk cost. And for all MBA grads who know what sunk cost is, it's basically something that you should never consider when you're taking a decision to close something down. If you have spent time doing something, that does not justify you doing it any further. And that is a massive, massive thing for an entrepreneur. And I would imagine for anyone else. There's so many times when I get approached by entrepreneurs saying, I'm doing this, it's not going anywhere. And I said, why are you still doing it? And their response is, because I've spent so much time on it. I says, that's so stupid. That's almost saying that your future is determined by your past. And if that was the case, we would be somewhere else altogether. Don't ever let what has happened in your past and the time that you spent doing so influence the decision. If you are convinced that what you want to do is the right thing to do and it drives you, it's your passion, it truly makes you who you are, then it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It doesn't matter how much time you spent, because all that is gone. You can't get that back. You would think that you would reset the clock, but you wouldn't. You would actually make the clock much better. And that's exactly what I did when I quit consulting and joined my work, or I started my own company. That's exactly what I did when I left my own company and wanted to do something else. And that's exactly what I will be doing if today I leave Groupon and say I want to do something else. It's the way that you should always think about it, not the time that you spent in doing something. And a lot of times, you would think, hey, it's too risky. What I'm doing, it doesn't make sense. Or I'm failing, it doesn't make sense. But you think about it, what is risk and what's failure? I never got through the IITs. I tried twice, and I think that's true for almost every other Indian who's in science. Didn't get through. And at that time, I thought my life's over. I remember crying like a baby, still do, but for different reasons. And it was almost, my life's over. That's it, I'm done. No brilliant tutorials, no Vidya Mandir, no Fiji, nothing could make that go through. I'm dead, my life's over. But guess what, it wasn't. Back then it seemed like it, because it was just unsurmountable. It almost seemed there was no future. And then you think about it, what was it? It's just so stupid. If I look back at the 10th and the 12th boards that we went through, or at least I went through, and the pressure that we felt, and the pre-boards, and the day of the examination, or the college exam, and all that, it just sounds so trivial. It just sounds as if it was something else taking us over, when it really wasn't as meaningful. But back then it was. And that instantly tells you it's a state of mind. It's not an absolute. There is no quantified risk, and there is no quantified failure in this world. What's risk for me is not for anyone else. I know of people who buy cars and for 2 years don't take the plastic sheets off of the rear seat. And that tells me something about their risk appetite. It also tells us when we wrap our remotes to endless levels in plastic, because it tells us who we are. And as Indians, and I don't use that in a derogatory manner because I'm a proud Indian, we are almost driven or taught to be risk averse. We're always said that when you earn money, save it. Don't spend it. When you earn something, save it. If you are in a good job, secure it. If you believe that you want to be a dancer, as perhaps the prior talk that we saw, forget it. Follow it as a hobby. Don't become a photographer. Don't pursue what the society doesn't think would be justified. Because you will fail. But who knows what failure is and who knows what risk is? I've taken a lot of risks. I've failed a lot of times. But all of them didn't seem like risk and failure to me because it was just a state of mind. I remember watching this YouTube video and it was fascinating what that gentleman said. Fear is fantastic because it's self-created. We can create it and we can destroy it too. But here's the fascinating part. Behind fear is the person we really want to be. I'm scared of ghosts, and I'm not lying here. I am actually scared of ghosts. But the day I'm not, I will become someone I want to be. I'm scared of heights. But the day I'm not, I will become someone I want to be. If you're scared of losing, or if you're scared of leaving your job because you don't like it, or if you're scared that this relationship isn't going any further, but you're scared of being lonely, when you overcome, you will become someone you want to be. And that's how you should always think of risk and failure. It's never determined by society because they themselves don't know what risk and failure is. 2 years back, I was diagnosed with a very freak, I don't know what to call it, let's call it a disease. And I distinctly remember the doctor when he diagnosed that, writing on the prescription, stop walking. So it was something that had hit my hip bone and was really hurting. I couldn't lay any weight on it any further. And his diagnosis was stop walking. Of course, he didn't mean it for life, but it struck me. It was really bad at that point of time. But how can someone say stop walking? Because it's pretty much what Arjun also mentioned. Imagine you in the most pathetic state where you're not moving. You'd want to do something, but you're not moving. And I am a physically active person, so stop walking for me almost meant stop breathing. But what I remember is it drove me in a direction where I wanted to be, once I recovered from it, fit. I said, life made me to stop walking. I will respond by running. And I'll actually give life back what it snatched away from me. So the next year I trained myself for the marathon. I hate running. I think it's the most boring activity on earth. But I did that and I ran the marathon and I finished it. And then I said, okay, can I become fitter? And that's what I said, okay, let me give myself a task doing it. So I remember first day going to the gym and the trainer said, do 20 push-ups. And I started 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 5 is easy, everyone can do it. 6, 7 is when you really know what's happening. And then he stepped away, he went to look after someone else. And I did 5, 6, I saw him step away and then did 10, 11, 14, 16, 19, 20 down. Because he was in front of me, I was doing it. The minute he turned away, I did something that I shouldn't have. So the question is, do we do things because someone's watching? Or do we do it because we have to do it? And that's a very important lesson that I've learned. Do what is right when no one's looking. Do what is right when no one's looking. You don't need any invigilator. You don't need your parent. You don't need your teacher. You don't need your friend. You don't need God. You don't need anyone else. You just need your own self to tell you what is right. And do that when no one's looking. And that's true for an entrepreneur and more so true for everyone else in life. There are a lot of times when you're your own boss, you have to take the decision. There's no one out there to help you. There's no one to tell you what's right or wrong. And you have to decide what to do. And at that point of time, you do what is right. And that finally brings me to my motto in life. I live this. I didn't make this up. I wish I did. I would be so happy with myself. But I love this because this truly identifies with who I am. It's about doing. It's not about thinking. It's not about I should do this or karenge or something like that. It's about doing. It's about bias for action. It's about picking up and getting it done. It's about epic. It's not, can we all create India's largest chain of tea stalls? Of course, yes, we can. But is that epic? No, perhaps not. Someone else's destiny is to do that. We all are meant to do something much bigger. None of us is going to die of hunger here. We are blessed to be in that situation. So our life should be about epic. It should be about changing the world. It should be doing something which is of scale, which is of impact, which truly makes a difference. Wherever it is. And it's shit. Not in that sense, but it's about having fun. It's not about getting up and saying, oh, I have to go to work, or I have to go to office, or this is such a drag. It's about fun. It's about the feeling that you are going to win that day and make it happen. So it's about doing epic shit. You're constantly working, creating an impact, and having fun while you do so. I've had a fantastic time being an entrepreneur, and I love my entire life to be one. I would love my kid not to become an entrepreneur, but to think like one, where there is no boundary, there's no risk, there's no failure, and there is no regret. And it's all about doing epic shit. Thank you so much.